We were all in the backyard. Amber was in the house. The boys were playing a water gun fight, and I was with my daughter, London. I looked over, and then I saw the unthinkable with my eyes, something that just doesn't make any sense.
To have somebody tell you that you're a horrible mother, that you failed, that you should be in prison, that somebody should take your other children away. It hurt. I mean, I have to be honest, it hurt.
That extreme suffering tested my professed Christianity, and it proved it to be nothing. It proved it to be false. And that started eroding my soul. And eventually, it came to just an inch of taking my own life.
Welcome back, everyone. This week, Melissa and I were blessed to have the opportunity to sit and speak with Granger and Amber Smith. Now, for those of you who maybe aren't familiar, Granger had a very long-standing and successful career as a country music artist, during which time he and Amber met, married, and started a family of their own. But in 2019, the Smiths very sadly lost their adorable 3-year-old son, River, in a very tragic drowning incident. On this episode of the podcast, we spoke to the Smiths about River's passing, their subsequent struggles, and how their trials eventually led to the reaffirming and reigniting of their faith. So much so, in fact, that Granger recently made the decision to step away from country music to instead devote his life to ministry. Now, I can honestly tell you that this was one of our favorite conversations. We genuinely came away so inspired by the strength, resiliency, and the example set by the Smiths. We actually recorded this episode in their home, which gave us a chance to meet their kids, all of whom were so adorable and impressive in their own right. The Smiths are a wonderful family. We truly enjoyed getting to spend a little bit of time with them, getting to know them better. This is New World, Old Soul. And of course, we invite you to like, comment, and subscribe. We hope you enjoy the episode.
Granger and Amber Smith, thank you for having us into your home. First of all, we really, really appreciate you welcoming us in.
Yeah, of course.
It's so great to meet you guys. We've been targeting you as podcast guests for a really long time. Melissa introduced me to you going back years now.
Yeah.
So again, it's a total thrill for us and honor to be speaking with you and having you here on the podcast in your home.
Yeah. It's really cool. We've never done a podcast at this table.
Yeah, excited.
This table actually has some stories. Yeah, and it's also the quietest I can remember this room being here a long time.
That's true.
Yeah.
Lots of little kids in the house. That's always, it's a blessing, but definitely makes it hard to sit down and do a podcast in your living room.
Yeah.
Can't say what will happen if the children will come bursting through the door, but
No pressure. We love it. Like you said, we have 5 all around here. So very, very used to it.
Yes.
We want to kind of start at the beginning with you guys. You have an amazing backstory. How did the two of you meet?
take it?
You take it.
We always take turns on this. We met on the set of his very first music video. He was filming his song for Don't Listen to the Radio, and he was looking for the love interest, somebody to play the girl. And they had gone through a roll of casting, and then his story that he tells me is that he went home that night and decided he just didn't feel quite set on the girl. And my picture came up on Facebook of the people you may know, and he clicked on that.
I was like, that will be just bigger.
And I was doing acting part-time in Fort Worth. And so I thought, well, he messaged me and said, we're doing an audition. Would you like to audition for this video? And I was like, why not? It'll be something else for my resume. And we did the shoot in Killeen, Texas, and spent the whole day together. And I realized that I needed to see him again. And we met for coffee about a month later. And then we got married a year after that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Quite the story.
Yeah, that's great. It was like God just was like popped up. You've got mail.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And you didn't mention that also no one knew me.
Yeah.
I didn't have any kind of career. It was my first single, my first music video, all that.
Yeah. It was just kind of starting really with the band.
Yeah. So when we did the casting call on Craigslist, it was like, we were struggling a little bit to try to find
Girls to show up.
Yeah. We'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Did you ever even have a moment of pause of like maybe he doesn't have a band?
No, I really never thought about it. No.
Good question.
That's good now. Would I encourage my daughter to go audition through a Facebook ad?
Yeah.
Probably not, but it was a different time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
15 years ago. Craigslist just back. Yeah.
It's different with your kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
You're willing to take different risks.
That's true.
So how long did you date before actually getting married?
I think it was like 7 months till I proposed, and then just about 5 months until we got married.
Yeah.
And then babies came quickly after.
Yeah, and then one year.
We had Lana a year later.
A year later, yeah.
Yep. And then about 2 years after that, we kind of had this plan, that we had things set in order of what we wanted. And by God's grace, it kind of happened that way.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you had your family of 3, and that's when I found you guys online and just cute videos, fishing, and we're going around in his little car. I had a 3-year-old at the same time. Our Eli was the same age. And so I was like, oh my gosh, his family is just so similar to ours, and just really connected with your videos. And then everything shifted for you guys. So could you take us to that period of time in your life and that season in your life? And
Could I ask you a question?
Mhm.
Because I honestly don't know. What was that like for you when we had the big shift in our life?
Yeah.
So say you found us and you're like, oh, this family's kind of similar to us. Like we could be friends with that family.
Yeah. Okay.
What happened to you?
I went back and forth on whether I was going to tell you this or not. So I was watching, and Eli was 3 and Riv was 3, and they looked similar. The same hairstyle, same funny personality. And when I saw that announcement with the little cars thing and everything, he was really into cars. I was sitting at my I remember exactly where I was sitting. I was sitting at my dining room table, and I was just like sobbing watching your video. And I was holding Eli, and then I thought, I can't watch anymore. Like, I can't do this. Like, every time I would try to watch your videos or your follow-ups, I would just struggle with it so hard because it was my worst nightmare as a parent. And I was watching your videos too, and you had the ear chimes and everything, and I just couldn't get through them. And then I felt bad because I thought, you guys are powering through this to share with other people, to help people that are going through this in their lives, and to show people that there's life after, and I'm quitting on you. So I felt like I was quitting on you. So then I went back to watching your videos. But I did take like probably a 6-month break.
Say that. I've had people tell me that before, that they had to stop watching, and then they came back, just like you said, a few months later, and they were like, I realized I needed to come back here and see how you guys are doing.
I think I would do the same thing. Like, sometimes we go to YouTube or something like that to kind of be entertained and to be and to relax a little bit. And I know a lot of people watch you guys that don't live the same lifestyle at all. They might be in an apartment condo in a city, and they watch, what would it be like to live in the middle of nowhere in Idaho? And if something drastically changes with that, and it takes away their source of peace, why they came there to begin with, I could see why they would say, I'm going to I can't watch this anymore because it's no longer giving me what I came for. Yeah. And it's not your fault. I just think that's very interesting. What was the tractor announcement you're talking about? I have vague memories of that time.
It was just the video where you just, yeah, it was where you guys were talking together.
Yeah.
And
the announcement.
Yeah. And it was just, there was like a cars, like the little Disney Pixar cars on the.
Yeah.
I was confused when I saw it. I was like, wait, what happened? And so when I clicked on it, and then I just lost it. I think I even called him at work. Like,
no, I was at home. So I distinctly remember this as well, to where you were sitting at the bar top in our home, and you told me what happened. And I'm embarrassed to tell you that I literally, I think I paused and I said, I don't want to hear this story. Because it is very sad, especially when you're a parent. I can't imagine experiencing that type of loss. So that's my recollection of how that went. And like I said, I'm ashamed to tell you that.
No. That's totally normal, and there wouldn't be because I remember different reactions I had before we lost Riv. I remember different reactions I had to other families and things I saw in the news, and so that I don't blame you or think that that's wrong in any way. This is it's rare that I would get to talk to you guys about something like this, where you kind of knew about us. And we had similar families, and then all of a sudden our child is gone, and we didn't know what to do. As far as our family vlog, what do we do? Do we just end it? Is it just over?
Didn't we right after it happened? Didn't you pull everything down? And then
Yes. I did. I had a moment when I put every video on private because we weren't taking any interviews, and the only people calling, I was a country music singer at the time, so the only people calling were the ones that wanted like scoop,
Right.
Just a headline. And, Granger Smith's son, 3-year-old son, drowns in pool. And they wanted to get a hot take from me. And so we said no to everyone, and including my brother, who's my manager, publicist, everyone. In fact, Nicole, you might have dealt with her.
Yeah.
She's still my publicist. So she was the one going through all that. And we thought, well, maybe the only logical thing, because we have to say something. Maybe the Smiths, our family blog, maybe that's where we sit down and talk about
just talk to the people directly instead of them hearing it from a different news source.
Do you read that?
No, I don't. We got a ton of horrible comments and scrutiny, and that was awful in that time in our life. But I don't regret you and I sitting down and talking about it.
So we have a 3-year-old now, Maverick, who's about the same age as when we lost Riv, and he likes to watch those old videos.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I'll walk in, and it's that video we're talking about, Amber and I talking about this, and Maverick's so they're just watching it.
Mm-hmm.
That's wild.
What's your reaction to that as a parent?
It's gotten a lot easier, but Maverick loves River for some reason, and he doesn't know why, and he can't possibly understand what happened or why he's his brother and why he likes all the same things. It's almost as if he watches River on YouTube and he thinks, I want to play with that boy because he loves all the things I love.
Yeah.
Mama, daddy, the Baba, Sissy, tractors.
I just have to stop there and interject we left his mom's ranch recently, and we said, we're going to go see River. We're going to go see River on our way out, River's angel spot. And Maverick was so excited, like thinking he was going to meet River. And so we're going to River's house. We're going to River's house. And so when he got out, he was kind of confused. Where's River? And we told him. And now when we drive past cemeteries now, he thinks, there's River's house. There's River's house. And he's like, I'm going to go to River's house.
I'm not ignoring your original question.
Oh, no.
But on June 4th, 2019, we lost him. We were all in the backyard. Amber was in the house, and the boys were playing a water gun fight, and I was with my daughter, London, playing gymnastics, which is something else we see quite a bit on those old episodes of The Smiths. When I walk in and Maverick will be watching an older video before we lost River, and I'm doing the gymnastics, and the boys are playing, and I see the season, and I go, this was the scenario. And I realized it's quiet. Where's River? And only a couple minutes had gone by since I last saw him, but I looked over, and then I saw the unthinkable. I saw him face down in their pool, in the gate, like inside there. He wasn't allowed in there. He couldn't get in there. He knew all this, and yet I'm seeing with my eyes something that just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So then as I'm racing in there and crashing into that water, I'm thinking, what will I do to calm him down, because he's going to be so scared and choking, but none of that happened. He was lifeless. So then, the backup scenario starts playing in my mind. Now, how do I do CPR? I pull him out of the water. All the things I'm seeing visually just don't make any sense. And so I'm trying to react. And even now, it's so fuzzy in my mind. London goes and gets Amber. She runs out. I don't have a phone on me. Neither does she. She has to run back in to get a phone just to call 911. We lived about 10 minutes from any kind of emergency service dispatch if they're going full speed and going through traffic lights. And so they arrived and were able to revive his heartbeat. But it was too long to go without oxygen. So within 72 hours or so, he was pronounced brain dead. That's not exactly right. He almost was. We had to unplug him.
Yeah.
Because
they said,
yeah.
The doctor came in and said he's read a lot of literature and seen a lot of patients, and he's the closest to brain dead that he will be, and he's heading in that direction. Okay. And so he just said there's 0% chance of recovery.
Yeah.
And I was like, how in 12 to 15 hours is there 0 chance? Like, give me something. And there was a doctor that came in and talked about, some disabilities if he did wake up. We'd have to deal with learning disabilities. So we thought, okay, we can work with that.
Yeah, we're good. You could do that.
We could do that. But he didn't wake up.
Yeah.
So terribly sorry for your loss and the fact that you had to experience that. Parents' worst nightmare. How do you process that moment when you're getting this news? Is it do you have this feeling as though everything's surreal, as though life is this isn't real in the moment? What was that experience like to be on the receiving end of that news from a medical health professional?
Well, I guess I could say it like this: when you hear it, you can't change it. There's nothing you could do about it. So you just have to deal with it. When people say, and rightly so, they say, I don't know what I would do, or I can't imagine. And I completely understand that sentiment. But when it does happen, you don't get that decision. You just do what's next. So what was next for us was go home and tell Lincoln and London what happened, because they still thought we were going to come back with him being okay.
Well, we did get a second opinion.
Yeah, yes. Besides,
second opinion,
of course,
and then we realized
of course,
that.
A whole team came in with a second opinion, and they said there is 0 chance. He's gone. He's not coming back.
But it does feel like you're in shock, and like this cannot be happening. Okay, we just saw our child laughing and having so much fun. This is not real. But as we've talked about, like there was a piece in the hospital that we couldn't explain that was just leading us. Every step and every decision that we didn't think was possible was just leading us. And so, yeah, we made the decision to donate his organs, and then we had to just come home and tell the kids.
Yeah. So then we told them, and you have to go to bed, and then eventually you have to wake up, even though you might not even slept, and then eventually you have to get dressed, and then you have to eat something, and then you have to go to bed again, and day one has gone by. And you know that every day that goes by is one day removed from you knowing him, and that there's this lie that we create within our own minds that says, every day that goes by, I'm going to remember him less. I'm going to slowly start to forget about him. And that's not true. But there were so many challenges, especially in that first year, that will blindside you. And we moved twice. I couldn't be around that pool. I couldn't see it.
Kids changed schools.
Kids changed schools, which was another starting school in the fall. This happened in June. Kids starting school in fall was a horrible nightmare. We take them to school and like, hey, I'm the dad. Like, I'm the guy. I see a lot of other dads here. Well, I'm the one that failed in the one thing that I'm supposed to do. I'm the failed dad. It's like every eye was looking at me. They weren't, but going back to work, had the same feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So
I remember hearing it on the radio when they announced it on the radio, and then they said that you were going back on tour, and I'm just like, how does he do that? How does he have the strength to get back on stage and put on a happy face? And then what are you doing at home? And so what did that look like for you guys, and what made that choice? Because it was 3 weeks later.
Yeah, that's about right. Well, that's that question again.
Yeah.
How do you do it? It's something I couldn't answer before, but then when you're in it, you just have to take the next step. And so for me, I was really struggling. And so I thought, well, there's a couple of reasons. One, I had to pay bills. I had 13 people on salary, and we were canceling. And the summer is usually when a country singer, that's when we make up for taking off a little time in Christmas and January. So I had to plug the hole that was leaking. And then I thought, well, this would also be good because I could take the family with me and we'll get out of the house and away from the pool, and we could all get on the bus together and huddle together. And so it was just a gamble. I thought maybe that's better than just staying at home and like closing all the windows and being left to my own mind. Maybe it would be better if I got busy. I think a lot of people end up with that kind of same mentality. I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer. I don't know if it's better to stay at home in the closet and hide or to go out. But that's how did it look for you?
Yeah, and that's what we did. I mean, we went for that first weekend on tour, but then, as he got back on the road after, I was just home with the kids, and I would take the kids to school, and it was supposed to be my time with River, and he wasn't there. So there was a lot of time crying, screaming. I did a lot of my lamenting then when he was gone, and I'm sure you did while you were by yourself too.
Tell them about the donut.
Ugh.
Because I didn't know that story until recently. There's some stories that we still don't know from each other that they'll just come out in their conversation, but
It was just one of those ambushes, I guess I'll call it, in grief, where you don't expect something. Like if you're having an okay day and the kids were home, I think Granger was on tour, and I would always go to this donut shop in our neighborhood and go get donuts, and River got baby donuts, which were the donut holes. And we went in there so often, the lady just knew him. She'd always look for him in the back seat, and I went to go pick up donuts for the big kids, and I'd drive up, and I'm thinking, shoot, she's going to look for him. And so I rolled out my window to get my order, and she looks back, and she's looking for him, and she's like, where's your baby? Where's your baby? And I said, he's in heaven. And she didn't quite understand. And she goes, oh. And she looked back, she goes, where is he? And I said, he died, or he drowned. And I just wanted to just leave, drive out of there, speed out of there without even picking up my order. But that was one of the first moments of him and have to answer, when people ask you, how many children do you have? That was kind of my first bout with that, I guess. Just realizing he's not here, and I have to choose. Do I want to open up and say, well, I have at the time I have 3 children, or do I just want to save them the trouble of, I don't want to hurt their feelings and make them feel bad for asking, or how do you choose? So that was my first time having to do it.
Because it always brings the mood way down.
Yeah. When you say,
when I was on tour, it would be like an Uber driver, and we would be going to the grocery store or something and getting this conversation, and I'm just like, please don't ask how many kids I have. Because I would say 3, and they'd say, oh, what ages? I would say, they are 7 down to 2. That's the range. And then it would go into a couple. I knew I was 2 questions more, and I'm gonna have to tell them,
right.
And it was just this daily battle. I don't so much deal with that anymore.
yeah. I always
I think it's just time has gone by, and I don't mind bringing it up.
But yeah, those initial first. Sorry, I thought it. I was like, I'm gonna not. But I know I was going to. I'm crying.
If this is too personal, we can brush past it. What type of strain did this place upon your relationship and your marriage?
We mentioned a few episodes back that we were dedicating this year to being more prepared as a family. But for the past 10 years or so, we have had this fun family tradition that at tax return time, we roll our annual refund into getting our family a little more prepared every single year. And it's really added up.
So as we continue on our own preparedness journey, we want to share with you some of our favorite things and the steps we're taking to hopefully give you guys a good place to start for your own family. A company that we've always trusted personally to help with all things preparedness, from long-term food storage, water filtration, solar energy backups, and even durable cookware, is American Reserves.
Yeah, American Reserves provides top quality emergency preparedness supplies that align perfectly with our lifestyle and our values. Supporting American-made products is important to us, and we appreciate that American Reserves shares our commitment to faith, freedom, quality, and sustainability.
Yeah, their products have become a trusted part of our daily routines here in the homestead, and more importantly, our preparations for whatever may come. So as we all maneuver this new year and all the crazy stuff that we are seeing across the country and around the world, we can all take steps toward making sure that our families and our homes are more prepared.
Now, of course, do as much as you can, but an excellent place to start is at least a 30-day food supply for every member of your home, a water filtration system, an off-grid cooking method, an emergency 48-hour bug-out bag, and some kind of solar backup power. If you can get that foundation started this year, you are off to an excellent start, and American Reserves is a trusted place to get everything in one stop.
So if you're looking to enhance your own preparedness with dependable American-made products, visit AmericanReserves.com and use our code SOUZA, that's SOUZA at checkout to enjoy a 15% discount exclusively for our community.
We both grieved very differently. Our children grieved differently. And he was gone quite a bit on tour, but it was hard. I needed to watch videos of River and hear his voice, and that helped me to feel closer to him. He couldn't. Even if I was in the other room and he heard his voice, it would kind of send him down into a spiral. So we just had to learn how to have grace for one another. And you're never on the same page in grief. Both of you were never like having a good day.
Yeah.
One of us was always down or sad and the other one was up, or vice versa. But by the grace of God, it brought us, I think, closer together and solidified our relationship and our love for each other and our love for our family. And I know that's not the case for a lot of people, but that was something that we decided in the hospital before we even went home, was that we're doing this. Like, the statistics are against us, but we're not going to let anything tear our family apart. And just navigating those waters together, it really has brought us closer together. And
yeah, I think that's right. It's you no longer rely on romance or physical attraction or this person makes me happy. At some level, through a very traumatic event, and it should be a good practice for life that at the core of a marriage is a decision that you make a covenant with each other. And that sounds so un-American and so unromantic. But when we say better or worse, I don't know if we mean that. When we say sickness or health, I don't know if we mean that.
Until you don't make me happy.
Yeah. Right. But at the core of a marriage it's a decision. Like, hey, you want to do this forever until we die? Me too.
No matter what.
No matter what. Okay, let's do this. And you say it, but then when you lose a child and your world is just torn apart, that's when that theory is really tested. And it's interesting because the people grieve differently, but even the same people grieve differently over different grief. Because when I lost my dad to a sudden heart attack, all I wanted to do was see pictures of him and listen to videos and hear his voice. And then when we lost Riv, I couldn't at all I couldn't even hear his voice. She would say, river warning is what you used to say.
If I was texting him something, I would say, okay, this has river warning, because we were still making videos, and sometimes our editor would put old clips of Riv, so I'd have to warn him so it didn't catch him off guard. Yeah,
river warning. And so I would say, I don't want to. It was a long time before I could. I mean, he's sitting right here above this table, but there was a long time before I could even see his face, because I was so tormented and haunted by everything.
Yeah. And you had the court of public opinion too, being on the internet. And it seems like every time that it's some kind of a water-related accident, people are like, how did you let this happen? I would have done this. You get all of those Monday morning quarterbacks. Accidents happen so fast. So our Eli on Christmas morning, on his first Christmas, ate an entire tube of lifesavers. And when my mom brought him out of the room, he was not breathing. And his dad was there and was able to get them all out. He's a first responder, and he did thankfully start gasping for air. But had his dad not been there, we could have lost Eli that day very easily, because by the time people would have come, it would have been too late. And that happened so fast. I mean, he just crawled away and then he wasn't breathing. And I was heating something up in the kitchen. So it's so quick to judge people. And I know online, because we all work on this space, you get all these judgments. How did you guys handle that? Did you know that it was just baseless, or did it like hurt?
It hurt. I mean, I have to be honest, it hurt.
Yeah.
One of my greatest joys in the world is being a mom, you know, and to have somebody tell you that you're a horrible mother, that you failed, that you should be in prison, that somebody should take your other children away, you know, and just the assumptions, you know, a lot of the comments were silly things like, I bet she was on her phone. It's like, I couldn't even find my phone.
Yeah. Or drunk.
Or drunk. Yeah, but they were drunk. It did hurt at first. And I allowed that to take me to a dark place. And as time has gone on, we obviously know the further things get from your little circle of arena, the worse the comments get.
Yeah.
Just the further the news spreads. And we've been able to use it as really good teaching opportunities for our kids to really think about what we say and what we speak or type to other people, that words have power, you know, and it still comes around every like anniversary of his dad or every
Anytime a news agency, like Fox News, if Fox News says a word about it, which in June, a lot of agencies, like a lot of networks, will start talking about water safety. And there's a few families that are kind of advocates for that. And if it hits Fox News, you're going to just expect the hate. It's going to pour in.
They have a really mean audience. I don't know what it is. We were just talking about that with our daughter. She's like, what is with the Fox commenters? Why are they so mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, that's interesting. It
does. It hurts. And it's hard not to see it. It's like, you know, watching a train wreck. You would go through comments with all this love, and you're just looking for that flaw in me.
99 of them are amazing. And we focus on the one.
Yep.
And in a weird way, it's almost like we try to find it.
Yeah.
You know? I don't know. But yeah, we scroll past all the nice ones for the one mean one for some reason.
Yeah, you can get 1,000 nice comments and one mean one will cancel it out with it.
Yep. It's all sounds very familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But
let's talk about your faith. What is your faith background for each of you?
Well, background, I was raised in a Christian home and very faithful parents, I should say. Remember going to church and youth camps and things like that. That slowly started fading for me. As I got older, as I got into music, as my schedule touring on a Saturday night didn't allow for a Sunday morning church at all. So I slowly got away from it. By the time I met her, I was professing a faith, but not living it out at all. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I grew up, my parents took me to an Episcopal church when we were kids. I didn't understand any of it. It was very religious, very ritual. But then we stopped going. My parents got divorced when I was 4 and stopped going when my brother played youth soccer. So we would be traveling, going to soccer games and stuff. And I did go to youth camps, but it was only because my friends were there. I raised my hand at the church camp and thought I was accepting the Lord, but I had no fruit. I wasn't living that way. I went down dark, sinful, worldly paths in my teens and 20s. And when we got married, I would say it was the first time we even started talking about giving our kids a foundation. And his, like he said, his parents were very faithful. And his mother has been just a amazing, faithful one in my life to lead me on the paths, you know, to the Lord. But it would still be a few years in our marriage before I even decided. It was in 2017 that I thought, okay, I need to get my kids in church. And the Lord was so kind in preparing me for that year and a half before we lost River. I started going to church, started reading devotionals.
Not me, though.
Yeah, he was still on tour. So I took the kids by myself and joined Bible studies with women that he placed in my life who would walk with me through my deepest suffering. And so I can look back now and see that God was preparing me that whole time. And I'm so glad I had that little bit of foundation, because if I didn't, when we lost River, I didn't know where I would have been after that loss. So,
given your loss and grief, do you feel that your faith was being put to the test at any point during everything it is you were going through?
Oh, 100%. The extreme suffering, and we see this in the Bible all the time, and then it plays out. It's very common to see that extreme suffering tests faith. And I didn't know this now, but I could say this looking back, that extreme suffering tested my my professed Christianity, and it proved it to be nothing. It proved it to be false. So you could have seen that by the fact that I wasn't going to church, I wasn't reading my Bible, I didn't, by the way I talked or the things that I did, you wouldn't say, something's different about that guy, you know? But through the extreme suffering of losing River, when I needed to find hope or peace or rest, I turned inward to self-help, to powering through it, to being a rock for my family, to not being emotional around them so that they could lean on me, trying to be an example to others so that others could look to me and go, look, that he's doing it. And that would motivate me. These are all inward things. And that started eroding my soul. And eventually, it came to just an inch of taking my own life before the Lord finally slapped me across the face.
Do you mind telling us that story and just dealing with your anguish, your emotional and mental anguish? What were the series of events that led to you really turning back to your faith?
Yeah, I do regret to say that Idaho comes into the discussion here, but partly because I just love Idaho and they've been so good to us. That's really where the story starts. Is we were on tour and it was such a good show. We had a series of really good shows, and so much so, this was in December after we lost Red in June. So much so that after this one particular show, the band said, we had overcome a lot. We actually went skiing in Boise, and my guitar player broke his collarbone skiing. And was it Bogus Mountain? I think it's the mountain there. He broke his collarbone and had to have immediate surgery. And then we played the show without him, and we did it. And we didn't skip a beat. And that distraction kind of distracted me from reminding me of my life is in shambles. And we played the show, and the band comes out to me afterward, and they were like, we did it, you know? It's so good to see you, boss. They're talking to me like, so good to see you normal again. It feels normal. And I was like, it does feel normal. It feels like we're back, you know, where the brotherhood is back. And I think I actually enjoyed tonight for the first time in a long time. After all this work on myself, you know, all this therapy and like trying to harness my mental self-discipline to not think about the slideshow, that's my word for the PTSD that I was having. I was getting these images that would just invade my mind of River face down in the pool when I first saw him, me flipping him over, and he's blue and his arms are loose like a rag doll. His eyes are wide open, not looking at anything. The little pieces of macaroni that were coming out as we were doing CPR with the water, gushes of water, the weirdest, most horrible, sinister visions would just pop into my mind in a conversation with someone. They would pop into my mind on stage, right in the middle of a song, and I would suddenly be in a funeral in my mind, and Lincoln is putting his hand on River's casket. And all these things that my mind is trying to understand something that it can't understand. That was my slideshow. And so here I am 6 months later, starting to learn how to control it, starting to learn how to get healthy again and be normal. And this one particular night, I thought, this is it. I'm feeling so much better. And the band said, could we go? There's this little bar across the street from where we're parked, and no one knows about it. Just go have a few drinks. You want to go? We're going to go. Do you want to go with us? And I was like, yes, I do. That sounds amazing. That would make me feel like I'm back to normal. So I went in with them. We had some drinks, and we were talking about old times, talking about the collarbone accident, talking about the days we were in a van, how hard we'd worked to get here. And after several drinks, I got up to go to bed in the bus across the street. And when I walked out in that cold air, I thought, whoa, I'm a little tipsy. I think I had too many. And when I got to the bus, there's a keypad. And as I started pressing the code to the keypad, I couldn't remember it. That's something I'd entered 1,000 times. And that's when I knew I'm losing my mind a little bit. So, whoa, this is crazy. And I sat there and it's like freezing cold. And I finally got it open and I went in. And as I went to my back lounge of the bus, I saw my self-help books and all my little systems, my life hack quotes that I'd written on a chalkboard. And then I realized I'm not back to normal. I'm a broken man. Who am I trying to kid here? And this kind of started this beginning. I began a little bit of a panic attack, thinking, I don't think I've had alcohol like this since we lost him. And then I thought, what happens if the slideshow comes back? I won't be able to mitigate that. And then as soon as I thought of it, it came to my mind. And then it was like so vivid. Everything was back. All the work I'd done, lost. I was completely broken. I started crying, and then I started sobbing, and then I was heavily crying. And at that moment, everything seemed like there was no hope, no chance. And I thought, oh, I know a way to stop it all. And I opened the drawer and I pulled out a gun that I kept in there, pistol. And I put it up to my face and I thought, here's how I could make this all end. And there was this weird moment. And sometimes when I tell this story, I have to say that just so that everyone knows I'm not crazy, I try to say it in a way that's understandable. I thought a thought that my brain didn't generate. That's the easy way to say I was hearing a voice. And the voice, in a comforting way, was saying, this is the way to peace. This is the way to rest. Just pull the trigger. And by God's grace, in that moment, I had an awareness that suddenly I knew I wasn't alone. Something else was with me and had been with me and had been speaking into me. And now I was believing it, and it was about to be the end of me. And then I was terrified that I was up against an enemy that I had no defense for. And in that terror, I just cried out through the tears, Jesus, please save me. Jesus, please. Reverting back to a praying mama, from my upbringing, I guess. And the voice stopped, and suddenly I had just enough composure to drop the gun, to realize how crazy this was. And I fell down to the floor, repeating those words, Jesus, please save me. And I fell asleep. Actually got sick a few times that night, and all my clothes, didn't even take my boots off. And the next morning woke up embarrassed, didn't tell anybody, but was suddenly on a new mission. What happened last night? And this whole thing, this whole faith thing, this whole Jesus thing, it can't be that easy, right? Why did this happen? And why did this enemy have me? And why did calling out Jesus, why was that more powerful than the enemy itself? And that set me off on a new mission. And this new mission, I was so into it, to seeking out what had happened to me, that it kind of I started to forget about the broken man, and stop looking inward and start seeking outward what is going on, which set me on a path that the Lord put me on, that we're still on today. That culminated 3 months later, when I was listening to a sermon, because in this search I was just listening. What happened to me? Have I underestimated Jesus, the American Jesus? And one day this pastor was preaching out of John 14, and the disciple in John 14 asked Jesus, Lord, why is it that you manifest yourself to us, but not to the world? And I was like, oh, that's a weird question. And then I thought, and a good one, because that kind of sounds like my question. Like, why was I on the bus? And why was I so broken and lost and disobedient, you could say, and yet you came to me? The undeserving man, why'd you come to me? And Jesus says, if anyone loves me, he will keep my word, and my Father will love him, and we will come to him and make our home with him. And I thought, that's not at all what I was expecting him to say. That's the kind of, he's saying that if anyone loves me, I come to him. And you could tell the people that love me because they keep my word. And I'm going, but that's the opposite. He came to me and I wasn't keeping his word. But that was when I first understood the love of Jesus. And in some reverse psychology, then I wanted to be the guy that kept his word. So it went backwards for me. I'm already loved, and I know that, and I didn't deserve it. So now, let me keep his word. So then I came home to Ambrose and I said, we got to read his word. Why? So that we could keep it. Why? Because he loves us. And that started a tidal wave on the journey. Everything changed.
If you've watched this for a while now, then you know that Daily Wire Plus is our go-to for great movies, unfiltered podcasts, gripping documentaries, and insightful series to dive into. They have some of the best voices in independent media, including Ben Shapiro, Dr. Jordan B. Peterson, Michael Knowles, and Matt Walsh.
Yeah, speaking of Matt Walsh, we actually originally signed up for Daily Wire Plus so that we could watch his documentary, What is a Woman? And we have been hooked ever since. Daily Wire Plus just released the new eye-opening documentary, Identity Crisis, which takes an honest look at the medical realities of transitioning and asks what are the true ramifications of these movements for our society and for future generations to come. It was raw, honest, and so well done. So we want to play you a short clip from that now.
I've often said that gender-affirming care is health care, it is mental health care, and it can actually be suicide prevention care.
I think I'm gonna take some medicine so I can kind of like transform into a boy, get surgery.
After the surgery, I didn't really feel any better.
What they're talking about is hormonal therapy or sex reassignment surgery on children.
I thought fixing me externally would fix me internally. But of course I was wrong.
The fact that the state thinks that they're more important and have a better say in what happens to your child over the actual parent's opinion is egregious.
Puberty blockers, surgeries, big money makers for hospitals, for physicians.
All I want to do is hold my son.
Identity Crisis is a must-see, and you can actually watch the full film right now when you join Daily Wire Plus, plus all their other incredible content as well. Also, right now is a perfect time to give them a try because when you click our link down below or go to getdwplus.com/NWOS and use our code NWOS30, you'll get 30% off your annual subscription.
Did you know what occurred that night, or is that something weird later? He called me the next morning, and maybe it was through text. I think we just talked through text and just said, I met Satan last night. Mm-hmm. And said that he drank too much. And I kind of had a feeling like he wrestled with the slideshow. Never did he mention anything about almost taking his life until right before his book came out. And he called me one day and he said, I got to tell you something. And this was what?
Something you're going to read in this book.
Yeah, something you're going to read in this book. It was years later.
Yeah.
And so when he told me, I just cried in my car because it's like I knew he was hurting, but I didn't know it was to that point. And I hated that he felt that was the way, you know? But then it was like replaced with, but he didn't do it. He's still here. So yeah, to set us on a path, because I was reading so many devotionals every day. I was like, I need something to get me through the next hour. And it did fine. But the next time I would be sobbing on my bathroom floor, that's not enough. One scripture's not enough. And so he came in and said, we have to read the Bible. It's like, okay, where do we start? Because I'd tried before. We just started in Matthew and read it together.
And we're still on the journey today.
Yep.
Outstanding. So let's follow up on that for those who are entertaining the idea of diving into their Bible. Where should they start?
My practical thought was, and I do believe that faith can be very practical. It is absolutely spiritual, and it's there are things that we cannot possibly understand. But I also believe there's another side of it. It's kind of the Baptist side of me that says, but it can be practical. For instance, I sent a message to a guy today. There was a brother that said, hey, my brother is suffering. He lost his mother-in-law and his wife within about a 6-month period. He's really suffering, but he's now starting to tap into his faith. That's the words that were used. What advice can you give him? And so when I hear something like that, I usually don't get mystical and spiritual. I get pretty practical, and I say, well, faith, you could interchange that word with trust. And so to say that I trust Amber is to say that I have faith in Amber, but that's because I know her and because I continue to know her and learn her, and she reveals to me more and more the more we know each other, and the more I see her goings and her comings and her actions and the way that she loves and what she doesn't like and what she does like, and I learn her over years. And to say that would be different with God is weird. And to say, I'm going to dive into some faith about God, when the truth is, God has revealed to us all we need to know about who he is through the Bible. And so the more you take the journey into your faith, it would be the same thing as saying, the more you're learning from the Bible, either hearing it preached, discussing it like we're doing right here at this table, reading on your own time, listening to it, singing it, wrestling with it, arguing with it, absorbing it, learning it, all the things. It's all part of learning more and more who God is so that you could have more faith in him. So when to say, where should we start in the Bible? I would say anywhere really, except for what I see so often is someone will pull out an app, and like the Bible app pops up one verse a day. I would say, awesome. I love that. But that's an appetizer. Right. Let's not let that be the main course. The main course would be any place where you move forward in the Bible and pick up tomorrow where you left off today. So if it's John, if you read one chapter in John today, read John 2 tomorrow and John 3 the next day. If you start in Romans, great. If you start in Acts, I know people start in Acts. Matthew is where we started. Genesis is the beginning. That's another place to start.
And Romans was your brother.
Romans was my brother Parker. There's not a right answer to that because all of it is breathed out by God. All scripture is profitable for teaching, reproof, correction, and for training in righteousness. So you can start anywhere, but just don't stop. Keep going where you left off.
Yeah.
Great advice. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're doing a app right now.
Oh, I'm doing Bible in a day.
Yeah, Bible in a day.
Or Bible in a
I
year.
guess it does
day by
go.
day. So
Yeah, it does go.
That's great. So that's a plan. Just have a plan. This is my point. Let's not play Bible roulette where you just flip open and go, let's see what sounds good today.
yes.
Or also don't seek out in the Bible what you're currently feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So if you say, man, what does the Bible say about divorce? Because I'm in a tough spot right now. So you kind of like flip through, or I'm grieving. What does the Bible say about grief? Or I'm suffering with someone that's a narcissist. What does the Bible say about? So then you find yourself chasing your own feelings in the Word of God instead of let the Bible, let God speak to you, and He will show you things chronologically that you didn't expect to go to, and all of a sudden that's actually what you needed to hear. So let me say, it's not bad to go chase what the Bible says about divorce, but don't let that's an appetizer. Don't let that be your main course. So,
And you do see that a lot in the women's devotionals, where it's a single verse and then it's this feel-good thing about how it relates to the modern world when sometimes it doesn't. And then, I've had a lot of those too, where and then you kind of just, you feel filled up for a little bit, and then
it's because a lot of people, I think, are walking around with such hopelessness because they don't know who God is. So we have this worldly view of what we've been taught that, that's the big man upstairs and he's just there to give you what you want, just want you happy and healthy and wealthy. And it's like, that's not the God of Scripture. And there is such freedom and peace in learning who he truly is and knowing that He has everything in his hands. He loves you. You can know this, but we have such a small view of God. So when we go through suffering, he's not big enough to help us. And that's where my transformation came, was reading every page of his sovereignty, which is just a big word for saying all powerful, all knowing. Nothing happens outside of his control. And when you read that, coupled with, the verse that says all of our days are numbered, Psalm 139, then when you're going through grief, you can know, okay, I don't understand the ways of the Lord, but I trust him because he is good. And here's all the places, the Bible tells us that he is good. The Bible says, every one of River's days were numbered. So I can have peace in that.
Yeah.
And through knowing who God is, you can have peace and freedom and rest and all of those things. But we have to know who the God of Scripture is. And so that's what transformed me, was learning who he is. Because as Granger said, you can't trust someone you don't know. And when we know him, we can trust him no matter what comes, no matter what happens.
Yeah, there is so much fluffy stuff out there. And then when something hard does happen, it's all just shattered because it's this facade. And you think that you're so protected. Well, I was a good person and I did all the right things. And how could this happen? How could God do this to me? Is where a lot of people lose their faith.
And so to that, what gets dangerous is people will say to that, they'll go, he didn't, God didn't do, God had nothing to do with this. Well, the logic in me goes, then where was he? Like, was it an accident, or did he miss it? Or did the enemy win that little battle? God's going to win the war, but it gets very confusing. And so I think as we started reading together and wrestling together, what we learned from Scripture was that God is all-knowing, and he is all-powerful. And so what happened to River, although God grieves sin and he hates sin, and this world is broken, and this is not the way it's supposed to be, all that along with God didn't miss this. God didn't go, oh, June 4th, 2019, I was taking a nap and I was going to send my angels to the pool, and I'm so sorry, guys, but let me, let's kumbaya together. Like she said, we don't know why God does certain things, but we do know that he doesn't miss anything, and that he uses all suffering and all pain for a greater purpose, far beyond what we could ever know. And so the Lord has given us that authority now because we've been through it. I would never say these things to someone who lost a child unless I had lost a child. Right. Because they would be like, you're crazy, you're an idiot. What are you talking about? But as parents, you guys as parents, you could understand the analogy of things that you do to your kids that they can't understand. And although it's not quite the same, it's the same scenario. I think of it like this. I read this one time, that what if I told you that, my son Lincoln, he's 11, that a couple times a year, I take him to a man who tortures him, and he causes him great pain, and Lincoln hates it, and I stand and watch, and I do nothing to stop it. In fact, I go so far as to give the guy money to do it. And you would say, well, you're a monster. I say, no, that guy's the dentist. Mm-hmm. And the purpose is greater than Lincoln knows. This is for his straight teeth. Mm-hmm. And although he can't understand that now, I know that he needs this. So once again, not the same scenario, but it gives us a glimpse into how a good father loves his children.
It's the same thing with ISR. Putting Maverick through water safety, he's crying in the water, and he's standing there watching him like, you okay? God is not removed from it. He's right there. Mm-hmm. But we know that sometimes we have to go through things. The main purpose is to make us holy and be conformed to the image of Christ. And that looks different for every one of God's children. It might not be a tragedy like ours, but that's what God used in our lives to bring us to him. So like we said, we wouldn't say that to somebody if we hadn't lost our own son, but God uses.
Yeah. And we should say, it's any kind which is why I love podcasts like this, because we can explain. Mm-hmm. But there's two truths that live simultaneously. In the Bible, so many times you see parallel truths that travel together. And I've heard it say that they intersect only in heaven. So we can't understand how they intersect. But the parallel truth in this scenario is that God hates that River had to die, and that he's young, and 3-year-old boys shouldn't die. And the Lord grieves, just like he grieves Lazarus with Mary and Martha. And he grieves with us, and he's near to the brokenhearted. That's a truth. All that's true. And then the parallel truth is God saw it coming. He knew it was coming. He didn't stop it. And now he uses it. And you go, I don't understand. Well, the ultimate time that these parallel truths happen in the Bible is at the cross, or where we look to as Christians, because there's two things that happen. And to believe both of these things makes you Christian. To deny either one of these two things makes you not a Christian. Number one thing, you would never say, let me say, you would say as a Christian that man was responsible for the murder of the Son of God. The sin of man, the deception, all the things that led to the jealousy, all led to Jesus going to the cross, and man executed Jesus, and he hung on that cross and died, and man is to blame for that. The sin of man is to be held accountable for murder. That's a truth, right? But that doesn't conflict with the fact that God planned it, God knew it, God had this idea that before mankind even existed, God knew that the Son of God, the second member of the Trinity, would come to earth in the form of man, take on all the sins of the world, and so that he could become the ultimate sacrifice, and his people could look to him and be forgiven, not from anything they've done, but from what he did for them at the cross. That is a truth. And both truths coexist in a way that we can't possibly understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It makes sense. It absolutely does. One of the questions that I had for you guys coming in here was whether or not your backstory has led to you altering the way it is that you go about parenting with your children in any way. But in hearing you speak, my assumption would be that you just entrust in the Lord to watch over you, to guide you, and do what is supposed to occur and happen in your life.
Yeah, like when was there a heightened level of paranoia around your children, or things you didn't want them to do? Or
there's a crazy thought that's like, you lose 2, and you know, like you lose 1, that's horrible. You lose 2, then something's wrong with you.
Jeremy and I have been gold and silver owners for over 20 years. In fact, I first learned about precious metals from my grandfather and my uncle, who gave us kids silver coins every Christmas and taught us the importance of real money.
Yeah, gold and silver have been the currency of the world for literally thousands of years now. Paper currencies like the dollar get overprinted and lose their value over time, which is why gold and silver has been our family safety net through the years. And it's why we'd love to encourage you to learn more about their benefits as well.
Now, Trump is doing some fantastic things this first week, but the past administration's legacy of debt and deficits is going to take a lot of digging to get us out of this hole. For example, currently, our nation's debt is so massive that every child born today will be born nearly $1 million in debt.
Now, don't get us wrong. We have high hopes for America, but something you can do now is start protecting your own wealth against the past legacy of absolutely insane money printing and inflation by buying some gold and silver now.
Yeah, we recommend that you stay proactive and protect your hard-earned money, and you can learn more by calling our friends over at Lear Capital today. They will show you just how easy it is to move some of your savings or even your retirement accounts into gold and silver that hold value and protect your wealth long term. To learn more, click the link down below or go to learnewworld.com to get your free gold and silver wealth protection guides. There is zero obligation, it's just free information. You can also call 800-330-4630, and when you do, ask how you can get up to $15,000 in bonus gold or silver with a qualifying purchase. Call today, 800-330-4630, or go to learnewworld.com.
Of course, yes. So both are true, and I do trust the Lord.
Doesn't mean we live recklessly or carelessly.
Yeah, sure. But we also don't do the opposite.
Right. But it has allowed me to truly realize we don't have as much control as we think that we do. And God loves our children more than we do. So I have to be smart and be proactive, and protect them. But I also have to trust that if anything were to happen, it is in the Lord's hands. And, that happened. We had a miscarriage shortly after, and I trusted God with that pain because he had walked us through our pain before, and I knew that he would do it again. So I was in a very different place with that miscarriage. I had fully trusted the Lord in that. So any suffering that comes our way, still going to hurt, we're still going to lament, but we are going to trust in the Lord. And that's just a different posture of our heart now.
Yeah.
And trusting that God's plan will prevail no matter what. I can't stop. London, Lincoln, Mavericks days are already numbered. You do what you can to protect them, but in the end, it's in the Lord.
And we know families that have lost a child that then create kind of this little utopia where there's bumpers on every wall and they never leave the house. And I remember when COVID hit that, they didn't go anywhere. We know a lot of families like that. And that's a scary tendency that losing a child could take you to. Just ultra protection. And I don't think that's good parenting.
It's such a normal thought.
It's a normal thought, for sure.
I feel like,
aren't you scared that something's going to happen to your other kids? And I was like,
But ultimately, just a reassurance in God's plan.
yeah. So when you guys decided to try for Maverick, was that before or after you decided to walk away from country music? I just want to make sure we keep this in the right order.
Before, yeah.
So you guys were done with your family, right?
Yeah.
You had a vasectomy, huh? You had your tubes tied. Okay.
when we delivered River, they did the procedure at the same time.
Okay. So that's a big decision to then say,
Yeah, we thought we we thought we were making the plan.
We're still in control.
Charge. We're in control. And what we've realized is we wouldn't recommend a vasectomy or a tubal to anyone because you don't know what life is going to bring.
Yeah.
We know that.
You got to understand that.
yeah. Well, that's funny because we talked about that a long time ago. Vasectomies, but I mean, obviously, God knew better.
Mm-hmm.
But was there? I assume there was judgment with that as well for people, like, oh, you're replacing this child or something. Which, I mean, obviously, I think you have to be kind of warped to think that. And that's obviously not where your heart and mind's work. Mm-hmm. But there's healing in new life.
Yeah. And this was all, he came to me with this. This wasn't even on my radar.
This was your idea, huh?
Yes. Yeah.
Which is, I use that against Maverick sometimes. I'm like, hey, listen to me. You're my idea. I'm kidding.
So yeah, he came one day and said, have you ever thought about having another baby? And I said immediately, no, absolutely not. I felt like it would have been a betrayal to Granger. How could we think about that? But I could tell it was really something that he kept thinking about, and it was important to him. And so we prayed about it and ultimately decided to try again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I saw a little bit of your IVF story on another podcast. I found that really interesting because that was the first time we actually talked about it a little bit on our own podcast. I had never heard that side of IVF before, and that take from anybody. I'd never thought about it. The fact that you create these embryos and then you have to pick one. Yeah. So what was that like?
We were still new.
It's still a bit of a struggle for us. Yeah. The morality of it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And
we still cried over it. Lord, were we in sin? And we have lamented and asked for forgiveness. But at the time we had felt like that was where the Lord was leading us. And my thinking was, well, my tubes are just tied. I don't have trouble getting pregnant. So we'll just help them and somebody will help us implant, another baby. And we ended up with 2 viable embryos and struggled with, well, what do you do with the other? And we ultimately decided we would implant both. And we weren't trying for 2 more babies, but the Lord decided it for us. We had a miscarriage, and then we had 1 Maverick left, and it worked out. But so many other families are left with multiple embryos that just stay frozen, and then there is that ethical dilemma. What do you do? And if you believe that life begins at conception, which as Christians we do, then there's that struggle.
Mm-hmm. I like what our friend Alex said, where she said, you were dealing with the tools that you had available at the time.
Yeah, we were thinking at the time we were making the right decision as we were being led by the Lord. Now, would we counsel another family in that way?
Probably not. Mm-hmm. And does that take anything away from Maverick? Absolutely not. I think I told Allie Beth recently, I said that to have this conversation, we start with saying that a baby is always right, whether it's from rape or IVF or an accident or whatever it might be, the baby is never wrong and always right and always purposed and always from God and always a gift. But how they get here, that's when you get into the gray area. And so we start with the conversation by saying Maverick is here and he is always supposed to be here and we love him and he's, but that I think it would still be okay to question the motives, or not the motives, but the technique, the means by which Maverick is here. I think it's okay. It doesn't take anything away from him to question, were we ethically right in making this decision? It doesn't mean we regret or we feel sorry about it, but it does mean moving forward, if we were to counsel a couple, we would counsel, if they were in our exact scenario, we would say remove the tubes and try it naturally. And even though
we should have done,
even though the doctor kind of steered
had led us into the IVM, instead of reversing my tubal, which we could have reversed it and tried that way.
Right.
She just said it was a much lower chance.
Mm-hmm.
So he just wrestled with it.
Or adoption
and fostering, yeah.
Mm.
And yeah.
I hope that makes sense.
It does, yeah, completely. It made for an interesting conversation because it's not something that we had ever really mulled over.
I'd never thought about the fact that you could be left with extra embryos, because I thought, IVF is this incredible technology. It's so, millions of babies are born, all these lives because of it. It's great. But then I never thought about the fact that, there's embryos. And then what do you guys weren't left with embryos, which is great.
Yeah.
But, do you think there's an ethical way to do IVF? Let's say you only do 2 eggs and obviously that can get expensive and risky if they don't implant or...
That's above my pay grade.
I encourage you to fertilize as many as you can, implant as many as you can. So I would say if you're asking if there's and I don't know if I'm right or wrong, I would say don't fertilize them because life begins at conception when they're fertilized. So you could keep it separate. Whenever you decide to implant one, fertilize that one.
Right.
And then implant that. And if you carry a term, great. And you're not left with embryos here that are already fertilized, So I think that might be a way. Because my thinking was the Lord has blessed these doctors with the ability and this technology. And we know that the Lord opens and closes a womb. Mm-hmm. So we were just trusting that if this was in the Lord's plan, he would either grant Maverick to come or not. So that might be a counsel moving forward is don't fertilize multiple embryos, and then you're not left with that ethical.
Yeah, that's really interesting because a lot of people go to the total extreme of IVF is just bad, but then some people really desire to have their own children, and so I don't know because I'm not somebody that has struggled with that personally, so I could never judge someone that is in that place.
Yeah,
I know. Despite me, I know. So I would never want to judge somebody, but for people that have gone through it, I was just wondering if there was an ethical way of going about it.
And we did say we were only going to do one round. We weren't going to keep trying, because if we just thought, okay, it's either going to happen or it's not by the Lord. And I know because men and women desire a family, so they go through it over and over and over, and that just leaves emotional scars on them. It's a hard process to go through.
Expensive.
So at what point do you say, okay, I've done that?
There are, is it called snowflake babies? Is that? Mm-hmm. So there are the option also that there are millions of frozen embryos that are available for adoption. Mm-hmm. So such a wonderful way for a family that wants to have a baby and the woman wants to carry. You could think of that option if you don't have another way to do it. And we have some dear friends that have gone through that. That's just a wonderful story. So I think going through wise counsel is also important for someone that you mentioned that's struggling. Seek wise counsel outside of just the medical field, and which is where we would recommend a healthy church.
Yeah, that's so true because when you're talking to medical professionals that do it all the time, they view it differently.
Yeah, different outlook.
Yep,
for sure.
Yeah. But you guys have so much wisdom to share with other people now through your journey. Your journey has been incredible, but very hard. God has put you guys in a great place of responsibility through a lot.
And that's
which is heavy to weight.
scary. Yeah.
People always want to be chosen by God until they're chosen by God. That's how difficult that can be.
Amen. Yeah.
Like, that's a lot when God chooses you. It's like,
Scary. Yeah.
one more thing I really wanted to talk to you about, though, was leading country music. So you built this together. I mean, like you said, he was getting models off Craigslist when you so you were there for the grind and the climb, and this is something you guys built together. This is who you were. You were touring out of a van with your buddies, and then, I mean, Backroad song, right? Like, you're on the radio. We were all singing that as a family. Yee is everywhere. People in Idaho, the kids, they all like yelled at games and stuff. We hear it. It's so funny. And you see like hats and everything. So, I mean, you guys built a lot. And then you decided to walk away from country music. What was that like for you guys as a couple, for you as an artist?
Go ahead.
I'll just say, I've always told him from the beginning, like, I'll live in a box with you. I don't care, as long as you're doing what you love. And I could just tell after we lost River, his passion and heart wasn't in it anymore. And he had done it for so long, 24 years. And I just thought, okay, this is going to come to an end. I didn't know how. And then you could take it from there.
I've answered that question a few different ways. And recently I was in Tennessee with that guy. Mm-hmm. And I answered in, a way that I've done before. And he was like, can I tell you something? After being the pastor for 20 years, or 20 plus. And I was like, sure. And he said, you can answer everything you just said by just saying, the Lord called me to pastoral ministry. Mm. And I think that's probably how I would answer today, because there's a lot of there's a lot of ways I was exalting myself in the country music stage, and that was wrong. And there was all kinds of ways that you could make an argument like, well, that would be amazing. Like, just stay there and preach the gospel from the stage. You have a big platform, and you could make an argument, all of that stuff. But I think the best way to say it is the Lord started increasing a passion for him and his people and decreasing it for touring. And it left me in a place where I just was so uncomfortable. I had to make a decision. I was like, I couldn't do it anymore. And I had to go to the next chapter. And it wasn't because I was burnt out. It was because I was so excited about the next chapter and I'm a passionate person anyway, but I'm so excited about what was in store in the next chapter that I was like, I have to leave touring completely. Right?
Yeah.
Does that kind of...
There was no hesitation of like, I built this through all these years.
Sure. It took years. Yeah. It took years to make the decision.
Really?
Because I'm like, is that like indigestion that I'm feeling this way? Maybe I'm just in a bad mood, or maybe I've had a streak of bad shows. But it was persistent. The Lord was persistent with that.
And I was saying, after all this happened, we would get invited to churches to tell our story together, interview style. But then he would get invited to share a message. And when he shared those messages on that stage and was able just to glorify the Lord and share the good news of the gospel, that just lit a fire in him, and that's all he wanted to do. So that's what he mean. That's not trying to speak for you, but
that's totally right.
Just increased. Yeah. That he was like, babe, I want to do that.
And I'll play a concert, and I'd be like, yeah, it was fun, but then I'll forget it tomorrow, or forget it in 3 days. And then I started doing some sermons, and it was like, it's heavy, it's a big responsibility, but the impact just keeps going. So
so you find more fulfillment.
Yeah. And I think that pastor that told me, I think he kind of summed it up best. He said, hey, all the stuff you're saying is gibberish. We all know. The Lord just sometimes he goes, now let's go.
God's calling.
Yeah.
A lot of people suppress that. They fight it for their own desires.
Jonah got in a boat and flee and went the other way.
Yeah. It didn't work out very well.
Yeah.
God's like, no.
Yeah.
I think that's really beautiful. The stage in which you guys stand on now was built with so many different blocks by God, and now you have this amazing platform between your channels. I mean, you definitely just feel the love of Christ coming off of your channels, just out of everything you say. I love your podcast, your advice that you give, which we'll link all of that down below for everyone to check out. But the advice you give is so honest. And it's not always what people want to hear. And so often when you hear Christian advice, it's kind of feel good, fluffy, fill me up, make me feel good so I can go out and do my week. And you're like, no, you need to stop doing this. Or there was something you had your daughter on, and somebody asked a question about their relationship. And then you just kind of ignored the question sort of, and I went, well, I don't like the relationship. And I thought, like, that's such a dad thing to say. All these questions that you have about your relationship are sort of irrelevant because the relationship isn't good. Like, you should just get out of the relationship. And I thought, such a great answer. But that's the honest answer that people need to hear. And you don't hear that kind of advice online or in church anymore.
It's very polarized.
It's not popular.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of followers about it.
It's awesome being alive.
That's okay.
But it's the truth.
Absolutely.
And this world needs truth. And I think it's so beautiful that you unapologetically share the truth and say what people need to hear. Because I said you were that Dave Ramsey of Christian advice. Like, you know how he used to stop wasting your money. You're horrible with money. Like, I feel like you're like the Dave Ramsey of ministry.
That's interesting. Okay, take it. I like it. I like Dave. Baby steps.
Baby steps of faith.
Yeah, faith. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's been coined.
It's great. It's wonderful advice. I love what you guys are doing with your lives now and keep your message.
Amen. Yeah. You guys do a great job of glorifying God and serving as an example. So it's been a thrill to speak with you. Thank you once again for having us into your home. Genuinely appreciate it. You have anything else, Mama?
No, it was an honor, honestly, to chat with you guys after all these years of watching you on the screen. It's always surreal to see people in real life.
Thank you. First podcast ever on this table.
Love it.
Amazing.
Honored. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.